This meeting is being recorded.
Yeah.
Got it. Yeah, awesome. That's good. Do whatever you want. You're not interested. Go away.
How's that? Full
Worse.
screen?
Worse.
Oh, you don't want full screen, okay.
Hide stuff.
Okay.
So let our church go as far as you're concerned with that matter, right? You're happy.
No. No, write it, we'll find some.
Hey, Rich, how are you doing?
How are you, Steve?
You
Good.
wouldn't?
You wouldn't do
Well, we're gonna do it anonymously.
it. You wouldn't do it. I got to thinking I better shoot.
Charles Long, that's the guy that we sent.
Where?
Recording in. This one. That we sent the money for the calendar every year.
You did.
Hey,
Well-
Ken.
You told me to.
Hi, Volkmar.
Hello.
I got it.
What time is it there?
It's 1:33 a.m.
You're
And how's the
courageous.
weather?
Yeah.
Get that background.
Yeah.
How's the weather there?
Those
Oh,
cats and this trash.
there's no snow here. It's just windy and rainy.
Same here,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but like 3,000 miles away.
Yeah.
Just more people with guns.
True.
Yeah, well, out in Pittsburgh, where I am, we have had ice plus snow.
Oh,
So
yeah.
the ice is under the snow.
Yeah. You have both.
We may get freezing here tonight.
Oh, the wind chill tonight is below zero. And
John, in
also,
Australia, what's the temperature there? He doesn't
Trying
have
to-
his mic- he doesn't have his
I'm
mic-
trying
he
to,
doesn't-
I'm trying to get unmuted. Temperature right now is about 75,
Oh,
and that's Saturday morning, about close to noon.
11:34, yeah.
Yep, yep.
And is that Celsius?
if it were
Celsius
74 Celsius.
No,
2021.
it's about 22.
Yeah. So,
In Virginia, we had a snowstorm along I-95 a couple of weeks ago, and people were on that road stalled for 30 hours. I'm not joking, including
Yeah, I saw it.
one of our senators. So, and the incredible thing was, they didn't pre-treat the roads because there was going to be rain first. They would be washed away. And the first thing that happened was at the north end, someplace towards the north end of the Virginia stretch of 95, a few tractor trailers jackknifed, and the people to the south were too dumb to take the off ramps to get the hell out of there. And they sat there for 30 hours. Many of them didn't have anything to eat. They complained they didn't have water, and they didn't go out and get snow and try and eat that. And they were afraid that police were afraid that people would die of freezing or carbon monoxide poisoning when the snow got above the tailpipe.
Yeah.
So the next time they predicted a snowstorm, they started a couple, 3 days early, pre-treating the roads, including diddly squat second streets and residential areas. And of course, we had about 2 or 3 millimeters of snow. The prediction of a foot fizzled.
Well, we're supposed to get a freeze
It
here
always works
tonight.
that way.
Yeah. Volkmar, I'm going to show some pictures of your car tonight.
Okay.
I'll wait until everyone's gathered. And
Yeah.
what do you have there?
Pittsburgh.
Whoa,
Hmm.
Little Bob sees those.
Indianapolis.
I will make it so.
Looks good.
Yeah. So this is a test car, not yet ready, but in some days I will have a complete model made of this. Yeah, and it's not yet running. I'm putting a motor inside, and it is not painted. It is printed in color. This is just plastic, blue and.
What the 3D is, the windows are so thick.
Yeah.
Around the windows.
This is a Pittsburgh 6000 experimental electromobile. It's
You're going to do a program for us soon?
Yeah.
One of these nights?
The next time I will make a presentation. I need some preparation. But yeah. Otherwise, I have the St. Louis light white with something. Yeah.
All you see is the city.
Yeah.
Oh, and there's a belly button.
That Pittsburgh car, Volkmar, what does that have in it?
Yeah.
A Bachman Peter Witt drive?
Yeah, it is. The Pittsburgh is. This is with the Bowser drive
Oh,
inside.
the Bowser. Oh.
Yeah.
Really little.
Hey, Ken.
Yeah, it's a Ken motor.
So he's not running over the wall.
Any transit developments?
Sorry.
Any transit developments in Philadelphia? Anything recent?
We'll get to that in the business meeting, Alan.
Okay, thank you very much. Sorry.
No,
Thank you.
don't apologize, but there'll be plenty of, there might, I think the answer is no, but.
If anybody's interested out here in Pittsburgh this morning, the T was not running. Much ice.
Wow.
You should have put the slate cutters on the trolley pole, George.
Yeah. I wish we still had sweepers out here, but we got rid of them twice.
Yeah.
So did Philadelphia.
Yeah. Well, you know the story. There was a year when there was so much snow, PCCs were coming out of South Hills and the motor covers were just shearing off.
Oh
There'd
my
been
God.
that much snow and it had been constantly cold and frozen. So having gotten rid of all their sweepers, they decided they needed another one. So, I think one of your groups had them, and I think C41, 45, and 132 came out here. They used it all of about once. I have a picture of it sitting in the yard. And then they decided they didn't need it, and SEPTA wanted it. In the meantime, they had put a lot of money into that sweeper. And I gather SEPTA probably worked on it too, and then they didn't want it. And I believe that's the one in Baltimore. Yeah.
You got the idea.
Yeah. So, I mean, that was an excellent expenditure of public money.
I remember once after there was a couple of days shut down on the Norristown line, I ran into Ron DeGraw when he was still the GM there. And he joked about it. He said, well, we're kind of like the amusement parks. We run when the weather's nice.
I think there was a little more to the sweeper swap story, that it went from Pittsburgh to the Art and Trolley Museum.
It did.
And then they traded it to SEPTA for the Red Arrow line car.
Yeah, you're right. I think that's how 07 did come out here. Yeah. We didn't really do anything with it. It was just here for trade, I guess. I mean, we were fortunate. We've developed a very good relationship with the Port Authority. In fact, there's some former PAT managers that are actually on our board now. Al Beeler is there, Laurie Andrews, who used to be a manager of transportation, is there. So, we have some good expertise here. Yeah. I mean, not all the sweeper made it. They told me when it came into a trucking yard, and I walked over there to look at it, and C145 had its number painted on it, but C132 had the plate. And I don't know if anybody, you probably can't really see it up there, but
Yeah.
Because what usually happened back then was the shop guys would when they were reconditioning the PCCs, they take roll signs out, the old roll signs, and maybe cut them into strips with 3 or 4 numbers, and then when some unsuspecting fan came out, they made a sale. And I decided, I put a lot of work into this company. I worked for them at that time, and I said, I'm getting it early. So I also got the wings off of it too, on one side. They popped right off. I mean, I had a screwdriver, but I didn't need it. Just pop.
What will be an appropriate portion of this meeting to mention some historical photographs?
Go ahead.
All right. On the City of Philadelphia site, phillyhistory.org, I found 4 or 5 photos of the Route 26 loop at Pulaski and Rittenhouse, which I'd never been able to find before. And also an intriguing picture of the intersection of Chelton and Pulaski, dated after the end of trolley service, still showing the switch for the former Y at that intersection. That has me quite puzzled because in the Electric City Trolley Museum collection of photographs from, is a picture showing the rails removed and concrete patches in.
Joe Basha may be interested in those for his Philadelphia book.
Right.
He's saying he's very committed to getting it done during 2022.
All right. I'll see if I can project these pictures on my computer, or I'll put the links in the chat.
Okay.
The other curiosity, now 52 years old, in the Phil Thomas collection, I came across a 1970 issue of the Metropolitan Philadelphia Railway Association call on. I wonder if George is listening in tonight.
I am. Well, George Willa is. I don't know what the other George, but.
Oh, and Jesse wants to get in on the act.
Russ Jackson was asking about that a couple months back. Too bad he's not online now.
He may join.
Okay.
In the, there are
Thanks
two
for showing a
pictures in
picture
that
of your
issue
cat's butt, Jimmy.
Two pictures. The caption says car 25. Says car 2513 posed for the official photo along Route 42, delivered in December 40. But the pictures show 2514 in silver, and I recognize the location, but it's from 10 years or 15 years before anything I can remember. A PCC on Route 31, not Route 30, a PCC on Route 31 going to the Haverford and Lansdowne loop before the 70th and Lansdowne loop was built. And for a real before and after, there's a second picture with the car posed on the loop in almost the same place where Dr. Cox furnished a picture of the mail car getting its official portrait. I'm trying to scan those photos so that I can share them with you.
Hey, Jimmy, can you put those links of the Route 26 loop in the
Now that I've
chat?
stopped talking, I'm pulling them up.
Okay.
Should I wait till model news to show the pictures of Volkmar's car? I guess so, Steve, huh?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Those are probably still going to have some people coming in.
Yeah, it's interesting, Jimmy, you were looking at that loop there. I was looking on the same site a while back. They have information of how they changed the Chelton Avenue station from a at-grade station to an undergrade station. And they have some photos of the actual crossing before they sunk it underground. Same with the Germantown Avenue station used to be an at-grade station on the Chestnut Hill East line. And they raised that station up. They used to cross trolley tracks on Chelton Ave.
Remember the pictures of the arrangement to get the trolley pole under Broad Street Station?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
They had to install one of those for a few months at Germantown Station that you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've seen videos of that pole thing in operation.
Yes.
I remember. It's fascinating.
What program is this?
I don't know what is that.
This
That
is
must be Volkmar showing something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That looks like a Shaker Heights smoker car.
It's a 300 series. Yep.
Yeah, smoker. Yeah.
It's Maxon Silverman 4D. Huh.
You heard the story about those? They were faster than the rapid transit cars came in when they were new. That's how come they had to retire them, because they're worried the rapid trains were going to run over them.
Cinema 4D, huh? Not familiar with that one.
I'm not continuous.
Okay, I'm here.
All right.
Oh, well, okay, good.
It looks like 3D Studio.
Volkmar.
Yeah, something called
Volkmar, Bob's
something
here. Show me your
4D.
Pittsburgh car.
Cinema 4D.
Yeah, I never heard of that program before.
No, I didn't either.
I can't get to the, oh, there it is. Start video. Oh my goodness. Really?
Oh, wow. Got the picture of the collapsed bridge out here.
So. Need my wife to come and set up this. Okay. So is that the picture of the Pittsburgh car?
No.
Looks like Boston, but oh, that's clearly Boston. See, it says no stops.
Yeah.
That's the first IGBT rebuild car, 3265. It made
That
its
your
first-
picture, George?
Yeah, it made its first power test last week. Just before the big blizzard, and it's going to start running power testing next week.
Wow.
She looks beautiful.
They put the wings on it. That was the big feature so far. We're going to put the numbers and the ID on it in a couple of weeks.
She looks beautiful.
And the map logo.
Yeah.
Volkmar, show Bob Dietrich your Pittsburgh car.
Yeah. Got some light.
Doesn't look like a Pittsburgh car to me.
It is.
Yeah.
Bob, they're saying it's one of the 6000s.
Yeah.
I think they did have a single end one.
Yeah. Single end cars. So,
What are they? Osgood Bradley cars?
I've just never seen a color photo of, I don't know what they were
no,
painted.
I think nobody had a color photo.
They were probably out of service by the time color film was widely available.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know about that. There's a Charlie Dengler shot at Homewood, and I think one of those cars is sitting in the back lot there, but color was around Kodachrome in the late 30s. Yeah, a good deal of World War II photography was shot in color, so it was around. These things were running. I
Amateur
think,
photographers
War Service.
didn't have a lot of money or cameras for it.
The Baroness von Trapp was criticized by her relatives for taking color slide pictures about 1940 when they were living on Marion Avenue in Marion, Pennsylvania. The criticizers said that poor people shouldn't be doing such things. I wonder what she did take pictures of besides the house on Marion Avenue, because she did journey into Center City, Philadelphia at that time.
I don't know if she took any trolley pictures though.
I don't know. Well, if she took any general landscape pictures in Center City, Philadelphia, we might get lucky.
Huh? Yeah.
I looked through my father's collection of Washington Washington scenes, and I went through all of them. Not a single streetcar. So I said to him, "Why no streetcars?" He says, "What do I want to take a picture of a streetcar for? They're ugly."
Oh, it's there.
He says, "I just waited for them to go by. Otherwise, I'd have something to show you guys."
Unfortunately, people who took shots for postcards, the later postcards usually let them go by too.
How's your roof job coming, Charlie?
Good, good, good. They completed the cedar shakes on the roof.
Yeah.
But I still don't have a building permit.
Well,
Yeah,
the township building is out of commission, right?
Yeah.
Well, when we put sprinklers in the lawn, we didn't get the permit until 6 months after it was done. And they said that was normal.
In Arlington, they didn't do any construction until they had the permit.
Yeah.
they wouldn't do anything until the permit came in.
Yeah, so I've engaged an attorney.
Oh, gee.
In Silver Spring, Maryland, a builder built a high-rise structure 4 or 5 stories taller than he was permitted. And the government didn't know until they could see that it was 4 or 5 stories taller. And they said, "What's going on?" He says, "You're just going to have to live with it. I'm not tearing it down." They tore it down. They lost the extra stories. Incredible.
Wow.
They renamed the Washington Redskins the Commanders.
The commies.
And that's
Yes.
it. They stole it. And they said this is going to be shortened to commies. And also, the team is called the WC for Washington Commandos.
Oh.
So now they're the toilets. And they spent 2 years trying to figure out a new name, and that's the best they could come up with.
I made 2 entries to their suggestion box. The pale faces and the real Americans.
Well, if I were in charge, I would have just changed the logo from the noble Indian to a redskin potato.
Oh,
Oh, geez. Well, somebody's gonna get mad about that. When PTM had to move its archives about a year and a half ago, we had to get out of the building we had not owned, but basically was given to us because the roof was collapsing. And they were throwing away things that really didn't fit the mission. And I took home boxes and boxes of old Trains magazines to see if I could find anything from the Laurel Line or Scranton Railway. You know, I didn't find very much of it, but I'll tell you, the ads for trains like the Hiawatha or the Santa Fe had so many caricature drawings of Native Americans. I just wonder what would happen now if those things showed up. Nothing but dancing Indians and pretty Indian women and since we're all getting so mad about things.
The Pennsylvania Hotel opposite Penn Station in New York is being demolished right now as we speak.
Really?
And the building that's going to go up is allegedly, this is what I read, PENN15. Those places, penis.
oh no.
And again, you got to wonder. I mean, these are people that are spending hundreds of millions of dollars to build a high rise.
Well, they'll get a
the best they can
rise.
Come up with, yeah, exactly. The best they can come up with is penis.
Not much imagination out there.
I'll bet somebody did that deliberately.
Well, the marketing group out here, when the T was going to come of age and actually start running, they didn't want people to call it the trolley. And of course, a lot of people were. I did. And they held a naming contest, a public naming contest, and they rejected all of them. But the one we really thought was great because it had all the right words was the South Hills Interurban Transit.
Oh.
But what does customer service do when somebody calls up and says, "I want to go library. What do I do?" And they say, "Go down to Wood Street Station and take the next." Internally, we had a good laugh out of that one. They didn't pick it.
That's why in Texas, there's no Sam Houston Institute of Technology.
Okay.
And there's
Yeah.
and there's also no Senator Dodd of Connecticut and his son. They did not name a dam after them. Dodd Dam would not be considered okay.
damn.
By the way, what is the greatest name of a football player in the NFL history? Fair Hooker.
All right. Hey, Steve,
Yeah.
I got my code 100 rail and it won't show me. I can't tell what I'm looking at. Let me see. There it is. All right. Got my number 2 switch.
I see. Yeah.
Painted a little bit of the number 2 or the straight. I slid that thing right through straight track.
No problem.
No problem.
How about the curves? You get to that part yet?
Come down here, we got a curve.
Okay.
Now, what I did since I have no code 83 rail, oh dear, I made points on this rail and I basically pushed it through an inch at a time on the curve.
Oh, sometimes it also helps if you bend it first.
Yeah.
That way it won't gouge the sides.
Catch as bad. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll have to start trying that. I got rail benders, by the way.
Oh, okay.
So
yeah, if you bend it like anywhere close to the curve, it'll just follow it on through without gouging.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll try that. So, but I'm on my way. I got my rail. I got my streets.
Oh, the rail was delivered?
Huh?
The rail was delivered?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So, by the way, where am I at? There. Look, I soldered the rail underneath after I put it in.
Yeah, you could do that.
And on the cobblestone, I drilled straight down under. What I'm thinking of this stuff is to bring it out the side.
You mean the wire?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that how you do it?
Yeah, usually I do it. I solder the wire underneath since there's space for it, you know?
Yeah. But do you bring it out the side or take it down underneath the street?
Oh, I usually take it out the side or drill a hole off to the side and do it that way.
Yeah, so I'm thinking that'd be a lot easier.
Yeah.
I don't have to drill before put the street down. All right. Something else I was going to ask you, but I don't remember.
Okay. All right. I guess we can get started. It's a little past 8 and I want to give John enough time. First thing I want to do, I just want to tribute to George LaRue. I don't know if he's on or not, but I want to give a gratis out to him for doing the newsletter for us. You know, he's going on hiatus, but for all his hard work on the newsletter, I want to appreciate him today. Charlie's taking over for him. Hopefully he can fill his shoes.
By the way, has John already shared his screen or something? Because he's taking up the whole thing instead of the group.
Yeah, I noticed. I thought I could Charlie. I thought it was on my end, but it might be on his
No.
end.
Can you unshare or something? That way we can see the rest of the group.
Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Oh, we can
we can hear you. You're also on the whole screen.
It's on my end because I'm using a separate camera. I'm on a laptop, but I'm using a separate camera because I've got stuff on the table to show you. So I need to have that mobility. And we haven't figured out how to make the computer say, this is the prime camera, now leave us alone. So what I have to do, I had to go through a couple of steps. Charlie and I played with this from about 6:30 to a little after 7. So I'm sorry that my big face is on here, but
But there's other things to show. That's the thing, John.
There's a way you can fix this. You see a double vertical line next to Big John. Well, you take your mouse and you move that line over to the left, and it'll make the share screen small.
Congratulations, Alan. That was perfect. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, I see.
Alan,
Yeah.
you're gonna have to do that again.
Thanks, Al.
Well, I get 2
you want me
Johns,
to-
so.
Oh, wait a minute, let's try this. Hang on.
Hey,
Did that help it?
Yeah, okay.
Hey, Charlie, can you hear me?
Yes.
I had gone into the chat and I clicked on one of those links, but it took me, I can hear you guys, but I can't see the Zoom program. What do we do here to get back into it, the visual part?
I don't know. I don't know what you did.
Well, I went
Down
I just happened to click one of
yeah.
those links in the chat and it took me away from a picture.
If you can see your taskbar on the bottom, you should see the Zoom icon. You can click
Well,
back
I have
on
an
it.
I have an Apple, so I have a dock on
Oh.
the bottom.
Go up to view, where it says view.
But you know what? That makes me wonder about something. Let me go into the applications and see if I can, let's see what happens here.
Yeah, but I'm on a Mac and I have see everybody.
Can you do it on
Oh,
your own?
I got,
board
you know
rather
what?
than-
I've
rather
got
than
you
having the
guys
whole
back.
meeting,
I went into the applications and clicked on the Zoom app and it brought me back. So I see the visual.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
All right. So everybody's good now. All right.
Except we can't see, we can't see you because John has the full screen. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's it. But if you do the thing, you can basically take
Take the slide bar to the right of his picture and just slide
and
it
you can
over.
push it over. So basically, John's in half the screen, and everybody else is in the other half of the screen.
In fact,
But can anyone else share screen? That's the thing.
I think it's set up. Anybody can share screen.
Oh,
Or maybe
okay.
I shouldn't have said that because you all can do it and take it over.
well, that double vertical line. If you move that, you can move that pretty far to the left. So he only takes up a very small space on the left, and the gallery takes up most of the screen.
Okay.
Yeah, Alan has the right answer.
I see
I
it.
tried that, and all it moved was the little strip there that tells me chat and all the rest of that stuff. The
Well,
the Zoom thing.
It's working now.
What I did was I just clicked pause share. Did that do anything?
No, it throws you.
Yeah, now you're frozen up.
Yeah, yeah.
Am I unfrozen?
You're unfrozen.
Now you're moving.
Well, it's
Well-
working, so why don't we just move
Works
along?
don't fix it.
Go for it, Steve.
Yeah, sorry. Second order of business, Charlie, how are we doing money wise?
This is working out well tonight.
Yeah, here he goes.
Early.
I don't think I heard you, Steve.
Charlie,
no.
Jimmy,
Yeah.
how we doing money wise?
Oh, good. Let me give the report here.
Okay.
For the cash in the bank accounts, we have $31.51 in petty cash, $3,832.75 in the checking account, $18,679.65 in the money market account, and $13.83 in the PayPal account, for a total of $22,557.74.
Great. And are we sold out of calendars yet?
Pretty much, yeah. I think I have 2 left, and I think Rich has 2. But basically, on the website, we've announced that we're sold out. So hopefully we have enough. If there's anything still in the mail or so, we'll be able to fulfill them.
And some of our big bulk buyers still have some.
Yeah.
BSRA still has a few, and
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know whether because I guess Scepter was out. They sold their 50, and I sent them another 5.
yeah.
So I don't know how long.
BSRA in their on their bookstore still has them listed as of this morning.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
right?
So we can refer people there.
Okay, sounds good. Update on the meet. We're good for May 18th, 19th, and 20th of 2023.
2003 was at the Armory.
Yeah, I know. 2023. So we're still good on that.
We have a contract?
Not yet. I'll contact Mike Martin and we'll get the paperwork sent over to us.
And where will it be?
Same place it was last.
Thank you.
Yep, Daggerplex.
I'm sorry, what are the dates?
18th, 19th, and 20th of
Okay, because
May.
I originally had it blocked in as 4, 5, 6.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Welcome. All right. And I know we were floating around activities for the next meet with Volkmeyer, and then we're going to have our photo contest in April. And I know we were talking about an excursion out to Pittsburgh for the meet for West Penn. So putting that out there for any interest in either carpooling or a van or some sort, we can all head out there en masse. Okay. Anything anybody wants to bring up for issues? Okay. Prototype news. Anybody have any prototype news?
Hey, Steve, this is Matt Nawn. I have some news from a couple of museums. Baltimore Streetcar Museum in the past week has, we've had a very successful week. We got 2 large grants, one to finish New Jersey Transit, or I should say Public Service Car 26. The restoration of that PCC car will be done this fall. And the same museum from a different donor got a rather substantial grant to cover the repair work. It's more maintenance type work on car 2168, which is restored in SEPTA colors.
The Northern Indiana Commuter Transportation District this week announced the commencement of construction on the double track project from Gary to Michigan City. And so projected to go over about next 2.5 years. But that will bring the former electric interurban's main line, a double track all the way to Michigan City from Gary, or the east side of Gary, where it is presently in double track.
Does that get rid of the street running?
That will end the street running in Michigan City. And it will take up part of 11th Street. The part on 10th Street will be moved totally off of 10th Street onto a parallel private right-of-way. Then after a reduction in the curvature across Amtrak, the former Michigan Central, Detroit, Chicago main line in Michigan City, it goes into 11th Street. From there, the alignment of the new track will take up part of the eastbound lane of 11th Street and adjacent property obtained from the condemnation of everything on that side of the street all the way through Michigan City. Those condemnations and dismantlements are already underway. Property acquisition. The new station will be built in Michigan City. They are saving the facade of the Insull era 1927 passenger station. They're taking it apart in pieces, and the plan is to reassemble it as perhaps the entryway to the new station. So there's a major capital project.
Yeah, I just got an email that said that the Palm Garden Trestle in Pittsburgh has been closed. That means no trolleys, no buses.
What?
They're doing a double check of all the structures out there.
Yeah.
Since of the incident. Hey, is the South Shore still going to cross the Amtrak line in Michigan City at grade, or are they going to try to go across?
My understanding, Steve, is that it will be at grade. The only change there that I have seen in the plans is to change the curvature, ease the degree of curvature. You know, it's kind of an S curve there.
Right, yeah.
So the plan is to change the alignment of the curve, but not to change it from an at grade to a grade separated crossing. Once upon a time, that was a 4-track grade crossing. There were the Michigan Central, as I still call it, was double track. Next to it were 2 tracks owned by the former Chicago, Indianapolis, and Louisville or Monon Railroad. One of which was also used by the Pullman Standard Car Manufacturing Company to shift cars under building between one part of their plant area and another on each side of the town. They used to have the north yards, which was the major assembly plant area, and the south yards had the paint shop and a lumber yard. Remember, a lot of box cars were still lined with lumber or decks on flat cars. And so that was Pullman Standard track, but it was leased from the Monon. That was interesting to see as a diamond when one of those 800 class freight motors would go over all of those diamonds. You had a bit of a sound effect there on the South Shore.
Yeah.
I have to admit, I spent more than a few unauthorized hours in the tower at 10th Street when they had the tower there to control that. Now, of course, it's remotely controlled by an Amtrak dispatcher, but once upon a time, it was a very busy crossing back when the South Shore had hourly passenger service. And of course, the freight trains and work trains and the line car in between. And then you had a relatively busy Michigan Central. You had shifting back and forth by the Pullman Standard plant switch engines. And then in between, every so often during the daytime, shifting back and forth was the Monon job. So it was an interesting place if you were interested in all forms of motive power. We had electric, steam, diesel. And that's one thing about being old. I'm old enough to have seen all that. So that's enjoyable. And I'm proud to say that no operator in that tower ever got disciplined or dismissed from employment because I was up there. I have the model board from that tower in my study.
Hey, everybody, I got a little more detail on that Port Authority Bridge.
What is it, George?
Well, okay. So what they noticed this morning, a joint on the deck of the bridge that carries the busway appeared to have expanded. Okay, so that bridge is old, of course, 77. It was inspected in 2020 and was rated satisfactory, but out here in Pittsburgh, we all know what those things mean. And what they're going to do is take the red line cars and the blue line. They're coming through the Overbrook line, and they're going to run a rail shuttle from Overbrook Junction, which is basically Castle Shannon, into Potomac Station in Dormont, and bus shuttles will take you in from Dormont into downtown. And we don't know, how long this is going to take to repair. There's been an awful lot of cold weather out here. 3 weeks of very near zero weather. So this could have had something to do with it. I don't know.
In Washington, they started putting into effect the return of the 7000s and increasing train frequency. And they had proposed to the safety board a procedure. Turns out they violated the procedure. So safety board said no. So Metro went back and said they're going to wait 3 months and figure out what to do, what the cause is of the wheel movement outside. And we have headways of like 30 minutes on some lines. I don't know how you get to work that way.
Hey, George.
But the good part is that the incompetent Wiedefeld is leaving in 6 months. As you may remember, they couldn't, after John Cato quit, they couldn't find anybody who would agree to take on the job until Wiedefeld got fired from the Cleveland airport and the Maryland Airport Authority. And apparently he had no experience in transit, just airports, and they hired him.
George Gula.
Yeah.
Don't they still have the track on the other side of Selma around Boulevard?
They have, well, we have the line in through Overbrook, which is what runs along. Yeah, they're running the cars all through there now.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. Why are they running up and dumping people on buses?
Well, they can't run over the Palm Garden Bridge.
Right.
They're
But
gonna
they
run.
go
I
to-
don't know why they're running rail as far as Potomac. Probably because beyond Potomac, you can run them. You can run them fairly close to the tracks. You can get onto
Yeah.
Broadway and Beachview, and but beyond that, the tracks kind of slice at an angle right through four-way intersections, and it becomes very difficult to serve people. And they probably figure it's easier to run a shuttle back and forth.
It's easier to run a shuttle, but nobody wants it.
Well, otherwise, the bus provides people with a walk, and you're trying not to do that to these unfortunate folks.
Yeah.
Get rid of
I mean, it could be a 3-block walk sometime, and the weather we have out here, that sometimes is pretty bad.
He's going to present. He's the program for that.
But George, this isn't the original Palm Garden trestle. This is what a replacement bridge that they built in the 70s.
Right, the bridge that's there now that was opened in 77 for both the busway and the rail, that was built alongside the original rail bridge. And that's been in place, well, what is it, 77? I mean, we're looking at 40 some years. That Fern Hollow Bridge that collapsed was only 50 years old.
Yeah.
And people who walk underneath that.
Predecessor bridge was 70 years old. It was from like 1901 to 1970. And yeah.
Well, out here, I don't understand PennDOT. Frankly, everybody, Frick Park is a very busy place, and there's a main trail that ran under that Fern Hollow Bridge, the one that collapsed. And people said they looked up and they could see rusted beams. And we're talking beams rusting through. PennDOT said, though, that was acceptable. We'll just put a weight limit on it.
No, that's what they usually do.
I've heard Westinghouse Bridge is also in very bad shape, and that's much bigger.
Well, the rule of thumb for that is if your helmet can fit, your hard hat can fit through the hole in the structural steel, then it's bad.
Then leave it there.
What? If your helmet, the metal thing can fit through, it's bad.
I have some prototype news. SEPTA is selling the remaining AM7s they have for scrap. They posted a notice on their website. So say goodbye to those equipment.
North of the border. Hello? Yeah, north of the border in Toronto, I don't know how long, if they'll have the PCCs or the width for charters. It looks like all the intersections are going to be for pantograph only. And that little width's got a wooden roof. I don't know whether she would take a pan on it or not. But Queen Street's still off for the most part, and all the intersections being rebuilt, but they're all just in for pan operation.
Pan on the PCC.
Well, they've got two of them, but they've still got, they could, but one, if one hasn't got a burnt out MG, the other one does, sort of thing, so go figure. And the Cs, they've got what, 3 Cs and 2 As still, CLRV and ALRV, but they haven't seen the light of day for ages.
Well, it's hard for me to understand that.
And of course, your service is still Queen off, and Bathurst is still off, so there's more off than on.
Well,
Did
don't
Target,
forget, Pittsburgh had put pantographs on their PCCs back in the early 80s, so it could be done.
Yeah, yeah, I remember that. The front wasn't right, or close to the front of the car, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was on the front of the car, exactly.
Yeah,
And they
yeah.
actually kept the pole in the back of the car.
Yeah. You know, all the new cars have pole operation, and only King Street's got the using the poles now. All the other lines are all now. Some of the intersections over towards Spadina, they have the slides still beside, or right beside the overhead frog. But the downtown, I guess they may be coming off. I don't know.
Did Arden put a pantograph on their wooden trolley car when it went to Pittsburgh for a day or two for the bicentennial?
Yeah, we had to have that. Yes. Yeah. Port Authority, was charged with doing that, and we didn't have to pay anything for it because they wanted the car up, but it did have a pantograph on the front. Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So you can put a pan on the wooden roof.
Yeah, and the width's got the 2766 is 56. Yeah, it's got a wooden roof. Period.
Well, 3756 had a wooden roof. I don't know what they did.
Maybe this chat
chat
stuff we can do after the meeting.
Yeah. We have any other prototype news to talk about before we go to model news?
I have some model news.
Wait.
If I can share the screen. And since Volkmar's here, I can.
I think you should be able to share, Rich.
Yeah. Are you seeing it?
No.
You're not?
No.
We're still seeing John V on that screen.
Oh.
I think he does dog.
Definitely.
Are you? Is it sharing now?
I think he has to unshare for you to share.
Oh.
John.
He's frozen on the screen. He looks like he's sleeping.
He's asleep.
Hey, John.
Better get louder.
Rich,
How about all of us together?
All right.
do you have the green arrow for the share screen available?
Yeah.
Did you click on it? Does that nothing happen?
Getting anything?
No.
No.
How do you get John off of there?
Wake him up.
Yeah, but that was the problem that they had was when we first started this. Is
Yeah,
he can't get off.
He has to unshare for it to work.
Okay.
So while we're trying to do that, did anybody see that track system that hauling was had started in HO?
Yeah. Took a look at it. Rejected it.
Yeah, it was just a way to use Flex Track.
Oh, that's not what I saw.
From hauling?
Here, John.
Hey, John.
John.
We want
I'm
you
here.
to unshare
I'm
yourself.
listening to the flex track.
Yeah.
No. John, unshare your screen so we can.
Rich wants to share something.
Oh. All right. All right, I hope I don't lose all this. Does that work?
Not yet.
All right.
You got mine?
Okay, now we see.
Hey, there you go.
Okay. Since Volkmar's here, I thought I would show some things about the Shaker
Great.
Heights 300 series cars, originally built for Aurora, Elgin, and Fox River in 1923 by St. Louis. I've sort of gotten pumped about St. Louis cars in the past few months, since that's going to be our theme in 2023. There's the car at Warrenville Loop. There's a shot of one of them in operation at Shaker Square. And there's Volkmar's model of it.
Is that O scale or HO?
HO. There's another view of it. It's a very nicely done 3D printed model. The decals, oh, before I get to that, there's the assembled chassis. He provides the floor with pilots, and it takes the Bowser drive with the 26-inch wheels. That's running when it's assembled on my layout.
What?
And then recently, I was able to get
Oh, you got your
circus.
proofs back, huh?
Yeah, but no, they're in the mail.
Good.
These are the decals that that I had. I mailed the decal set to the shell to Matt Welke at Circus City Decals, and this is the decal set he produced, which includes the striping, including the complex striping for the ends, the numerals, the logos, the belt rail, and the destination signs. It's a nice set of decals. That was his sort of attempt to superimpose them on the car shell. And then just let me show one very quick video clip. And then I'll be done. Volkmar, you want to say anything about the car? That's all I had.
Yeah, looks nice.
Nice layout.
Yeah.
So I can stop screen sharing. Volkmar, you have any comments about it? It's 3 o'clock in the morning there, so.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks. Looks good.
You saw the decals, and he made
Yeah,
a
I
nice
saw
set.
the decals, yeah.
Yeah.
I still did not have painted my own car.
Uh-huh.
And I'm working on too much projects, but soon.
No,
I
you're
will
not.
try. Yeah.
You'll tell us more about it next month, huh?
Yeah, I will tell you more of all the projects and actually on the development, and I will show you some ways I make the cars. I will make a small film when printing, how it goes, printing, 3D printing, and designing. I will tell you next time in March.
This is the teaser.
Yeah.
Any more model news? All right, if not, I will turn everything over to John for his presentation.
Well, happy Friday evening and welcome to my house virtually. You hearing me okay?
Yes.
Yes. Hi.
We're good.
Okay. Probably
one-
just as well, it's a rotten night outside to travel.
Hold up, John.
And
Hold up, John.
so,
One thing we could do, if we could turn the video off.
what I plan
so
to
you get more
do
bandwidth.
is Charlie called me and asked me if I would host the meeting, and usually we do the February one at our house. And so I proposed to Charlie that I had a clinic that I've used in the NMRA, and it's about tooling for model railroaders. And so let me see if I can set that up and get that to work. Let me see here. See, when I dropped it out, I screwed that up. Let me see how I can do this.
Video and it's sliced through.
Maybe we all should mute too.
There you go.
That's not the one I want. Okay. Just bear with me, guys. I gotta get in and get out in order to get this to work.
Got the same hair I had.
This is Snow White, Silver White.
That's the one I want.
His is just silver.
Are you guys seeing this right now?
No, we're
No.
seeing.
No, okay. So that helps me. Let me
So I
see.
think you need to share the screen, John.
Yeah, but the thing is, see, I had this all set up, and then when I got out,
Yeah.
Now I'm back in outer space here. So let me see what I can do to get back to the right place.
Yeah.
Comments. Let me see what happens when I do this. Ah, doggone it. No, I don't want that. Now I can't get out of the damn thing.
We need younger kids in our office. Oh, shit. I do anything but the left exercise.
Something on to be warm. Be warm.
I don't want to do that. Damn it.
Old man, his cat, and his trash.
You have to send something.
What?
You might have to box something up.
just quit.
I think we lost John completely.
Yeah.
I don't even see him on here.
Maybe he got out, figuring if he gets back
he's
in.
yeah, he's
All
back.
right.
Here he goes.
Now, let's get this up here to full screen.
That's the one he didn't want.
Getting close. We see your presentation on the side.
Okay.
Full size.
Find it. Sorry, guys.
There we
This
go.
system, I'm still learning, and I'm on a new computer, and Charlie and I have had a lot of fun with trying to get the camera to work right. And good, I am on the right camera now, the correct camera. So tooling for model railroaders. Now, I'm not going to start with screwdrivers and list all the tools and that. I'm going to be looking at tooling in a different way, and it's very much related to, I used to teach manufacturing at Rowan, and we used to set up and run production lines and do our own tooling and so forth. So a lot of the skills and knowledge that we did there, we can do as model railroaders and as traction modelers, as a subset of model railroaders. I had asked in the newsletter if you'd please have a pad or some sheets of paper and a pencil available, because I believe in active learning. Too much teaching is people sit on their duffs and somebody stands up and does a lot of blah, 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 and no learning takes place. So I want you to be active learners here, and I'm going to be asking for some responses from you. And so let's move forward. So here we go. So I have some objectives that I hope you will achieve. It doesn't make any difference about me, it's about you. And in learning, that's our purpose.
He's an engineer.
So I'm just, I don't want you to do this right now, but some of the things that you're going to be doing is you're going to be listing some components in your notes. I want you to list additional tooling components not covered but important to modeling, because at the end, I want to learn from you. So I want you to give back. And so that listing is going to help out. I'll ask you to orally participate in a limited way. You can leave your mics on so long as it doesn't end up with the dog barking in the background and stuff like that. So we'll be having some time for some comments and things like that. I hope that you will pick up some ideas here for tooling for yourself, and maybe tooling that we're not discussing, but I'll give you some ideas and you'll say, gee, I could try that out. And that would be great also. So those are some of the kinds of objectives that I have for you tonight. So we're going to be asking questions on how do we process materials. And I'm going to offer you some general tooling for your consideration. We're going to do a little bit of talking about measuring in model railroading. And clamping is an important aspect of tooling. We'll discuss fixtures. And a subset of fixtures are jigs. And we'll talk about terminology there. And I hope that I can get some recommendations from members, because I have a pad and a pencil next to me here, so I can learn too. The teacher is always learning, and that's what makes teaching so much fun. So, first of all, how do we process materials? There are only 3 ways we can process materials. 3 ways. The first one is separating. The second one is forming. And the third one is combining. We can't do anything else to a piece of material that does not fall under one of these 3 categories. So I'm going to ask you to copy down the definition, and then I'm going to have you brainstorm yourself in your own mind some examples as I direct you. Let's talk about the first way of processing materials. Separating. The classification involves beginning with one component, and that becomes more than one component due to the process of separating. I'll give you a simple example. You take a piece of paper and a pair of scissors, and you cut it. And that is the process of shearing. And it's a separating process because after you have cut it, I'm talking about it cutting all the way through it, is that you had one piece of paper and now you have more than one piece of paper. You could have 2, or if you cut it in certain ways, you probably could have 3. And that's just one example. So thinking about starting with one and ending up with more than one, write down, if you can, 5 examples of separating.
God, this guy's boring.
Yeah. It's too basic. And do this without any education. Right?
He should show, happening like
I thought he was
a
gonna.
piece of styrene with a X-Acto knife cut.
Yeah.
30 seconds more.
Better stuff on YouTube.
Okay. So, can someone give me an example? One example.
Sawing.
Say it again, please.
Sawing.
Sawing. Okay. Another example.
We can leave your computer on, but let's see.
Laser cutting.
Laser cutting. Yeah.
Good one. Laser cutting. Okay. Another one.
Challenges there that are against the norm and super creative, which I commend you for.
So,
Take it on.
somebody running a radio in the background there?
Yeah, maybe everyone
Okay.
except someone who's speaking or John should mute themselves.
You're missing out on so much in life.
I don't know. Look.
Those scoring and snapping.
Okay, very good. That's a very interesting technique. Okay, next.
As that is Walt Wyatt in the
Say that again,
background.
Alan.
That is Walt Wyatt that is making all that noise.
If he could mute.
Okay, now I
Okay.
see you're muted.
Another example. We need 5.
Drilling.
Drilling, okay. One more.
Wedding.
Punching.
Punching, good one. By the way, we've got milling, we've got turning, we've got all kinds of abrading with sandpaper, with grinding wheels. We've got let me see, punching, snapping. I've got a list in my files. There's probably about 400 or 500 different examples of processing. But
John, could I add one more? Late arrival, stamping. Stamping.
Stamping if it separates.
Well, that's an interesting question. I guess you're right. And a dreadnought end is not a separated end on a boxcar.
Yeah.
Except to the
We'll
extent
get
that there
to
would
that,
be
'cause there's
a
another
press.
process which that falls under.
You're right.
Okay.
I stand corrected.
That's okay. That's what learning is. So let's move on. So you brainstormed and you got 5 other separating processes. By the way, as I wrote, as the screen says, there are a gazillion examples. Just think of the principle. All of a sudden you have an organizer for your thinking about processing materials. So let's move on to the next step, forming. Now in forming, it's the classification where we change the physical nature or the physical characteristics of something, but we don't add anything to it and we don't separate anything from it. And so forming processes are ones that we use. And bending, of course, is a good example and one that we use, especially doing overhead wire. And we could talk about the guardrail for a turnout, in which you bend the ends slightly so it will guide the flange of the wheel to go through the frog and not pick the frog. And so that's an example of bending. But we can do a lot of other ways, other things with materials that involve forming them. Remember, in the process, we're not going to end up with more than one piece. In any component that you are forming, you still have all of the material that you started with.
I'll bring back stamping.
I know that there are some examples out there that get out to the fringes, but the general the general principle is that we end up with the same amount of material we started with, but its configuration has changed in some way. So brainstorm with yourself and give us 5 examples that you have for forming.
I'll bring back stamping for this one.
Okay.
How about casting?
Yeah. Okay.
How about forging?
Yes.
3D printing.
let's put that on the side because we have to, when we're done, we're going to get into some things that are a little complex there. I'm going to put it down. I think that would still fit into forming. Yes, go ahead.
There's a lot of things that go in the different categories. That's one of them.
How about
Possible.
molding?
We have to discuss the process itself. But go ahead. Other examples?
Molding.
Okay.
I'm talking about me.
Could you say that again, please?
No.
That would be moldy.
There's vacuum forming.
Yeah. Any others?
What about assembling?
No, because
that's combining.
You're not. You've got more there.
Bending.
Bending. Good. So you get the idea that forming, we start with the material, we end up with the same amount of material, but its configuration has changed in some way. Last one, combining.
Assembly.
In this classification, we start with
gluing
a certain number of components. And what we do is we bring them together, resulting in a single component or lesser number of components. So example here is stapling. Very simple idea and very simple concept of pieces of paper that are held together using a mechanical fastener, i.e. the staple. So let's brainstorm and come up with some combining processes.
Soldering.
Welding. Gluing.
Welding.
Yes.
Riveting.
Yes.
Soldering.
Soldering is okay.
Screwing.
All right.
Ah, baby. Ultimate in combining.
I'm going to give you a short aside on that one. Go ahead. What else? All right. Now, how about you take two pieces of sheet metal, you bend them together. That's a forming process, and you assemble them, and then you press them in some way that you create a mechanical fastening so you can't take them apart. They're together and you can't.
Hinge.
So that's a form of a combining stamping, but you're ending up with two components becoming one. By the way, you mix two things together and you get, for example, casting plaster. You use the powdered plaster, you use water, and you cast it together, and you've got combining. Speaking of screwing,
Been a while, Tom.
I taught a class
Any
at Ohio
pictures?
State. It was for elementary teachers, and it was in technology. And so we had, the class was mostly these young, corn-fed, beautiful Ohio women. And we used to have a
In
couple of our
Glassboro?
majors take that class, the technology majors, technology teachers. And they would team teach the class with me, or sometimes we had two professors teaching it. And what we used to make these elementary teachers do, these new or becoming elementary teachers, was they would have to learn how to teach using technology. I don't mean teach using a computer, but teach a technology process. So there was this one young woman standing up in front of the group, and I'm standing in the back, and one of my majors is sitting in front of me. And there she goes on, and she's talking about using mechanical fasteners with screws and that. And then she got into a whole series of sentences using the word screwing. And the major, I was sitting behind, and the major, it was like watching a thermometer go up, because the redness started at his shoulders and came up his neck and up in his face. And I could see that his jaws were clamped absolutely shut to prevent himself from laughing. And it happened to be a time when I was teaching with another professor, because we had a big group in that class, and we had a rule. And the rule was, if something like that happened, we never looked at each other, no eye contact. And we both walked out of the room. So enough on screwing. All right.
One more, John. If you're doing upholstery on a passenger car seat, you might have to do some sewing.
Yes, good one. Knitting. The whole textile industry is a good example of combining. So let's do a quick review and move along here.
About
So
brass.
separating, here are some other ones there. Shearing, tearing, water jet. You can read them there. Scraping, punching, filing. All of those are separating processes. Remember, it involves starting with one and ending with more. So if you're sanding, you've got the piece that you're going to change the shape of, and you've got the debris from the sanding, and so that's separating. Forming, and here are just a whole number of other ones. Remember annealing, where you change the characteristics of a metal by heating it to a critical temperature and then cooling it, or you can also soften brass and copper using heat treatment too. So forming, you don't add or take away. Ice cubes is a good example of casting. Combining, and there are just so many here. By the way, combining also includes your coating, painting, staining, and so forth. So combining is bringing two or more components together to make a more complex component. By the way, it's like systems theory. So what does all this mean? We create items and we use these three categories of processing, and we meet our modeling goals. And now, what I'd like to do is go through and let's talk about some tooling that will help us do this. And this will not be a complete inventory of all the tools on my workbench, nor your workbench. It's that we want to look at certain ones that might help us in modeling. And so I'll be asking you for some suggestions and ideas. So let's look at some general tooling. Glass. A piece of glass is flat and it is very hard. And it is an excellent surface to work on, to measure on, and virtually indestructible unless you hit it and shatter it. So get yourself a sheet of glass, a cutting mat. If you don't want to run through a package of 100 number 11 blades for your X-Acto knife, get a cutting mat. And some of them are self-healing. And some of them, one I have, I didn't bring that up here today because I'm working on a kitchen table, but some of them actually have measurements on them, makes it very nice when you're doing cutting. Micromarks magnetic tray. If you don't have one of those, you will find that to be a great tool. Are you familiar with that?
Yep.
Guess what? I forgot to bring it upstairs. But it's a tray with 90-degree corners on it. It's made of steel. And then you have a series of magnets so that when you're doing assembly operations or even some processing operations, you can hold parts in the proper position to allow glues to dry or to apply a solvent, adhesive, or something like that. A model cradle. I will show you one that I have after we're done here. What are some other tools that you have, you know, other than screwdrivers, hammers, and saws and so forth? What can you think of?
Forceps.
Yes.
Reverse tension forceps, or else
Okay.
hemostats.
Trammels and compasses.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Third
hand.
mirrors for looking under overhead and things like that.
Yes.
Magnifiers.
A third hand.
Amen for that.
Dremel tool.
A vice and an anvil.
Vices and
Okay.
clamps. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
said, I have a piece of steel that I use for an anvil other than the back of the vice.
Yes.
The other thing, John, I think we all should have is some Band-Aids handy, because I pretty much cut myself, stick myself, or burn myself every time.
And being an old shop teacher, safety glasses.
Yeah.
And I've learned later on, I have a full filtered mask for chemicals that you don't want to inhale.
Drills
Okay.
and pin vices.
Yep, clamps.
Yes. All right.
Looking.
Is there something you want to have that you don't have?
There's
I
always
guess guys
something
at
you
our
want
age,
that
we
you
have it
don't have.
all, huh?
A decent, small, cheap bending brake.
Yes.
Yeah.
Besides a night with Beyonce.
Okay. So, all right. So this is not getting us anywhere now. So let's categorize our discussion. This was my father's, and when my father passed and we shut down the house and had to bring my mom down here to live with us because she had dementia. And so I took this, and it is one of the great tools. And especially for a person who doesn't have room for a big workbench and things like that, this workmate is I have used it in working on my house up in Pennsylvania, but I've used it a lot for modeling, and it has a great clamping feature. And if you're doing work on the framing for your layout and so forth, it's a great tool. Here is the Micromart tray, magnetic tray. And you'll notice that here are these little magnets, and they're pretty strong magnets. And these sides don't bend it, because these sides are made to be 90 degrees. And so you can get good 90-degree corners on the sides. And we'll be talking about some of these other things that you see in the photograph here. What happened? I went backwards there. So let's talk about gauges and measuring. And there are lots of measuring tools that we have. The first one is the NMRA gauge. If you don't have the NMRA gauge, then you have, where did my NMRA gauge go? Oh, here it is. Track gauge, NMRA. I'll come back and we'll look at that. But NMRA gauge is definitely something you should have. Feeler gauges are excellent to have. They come in usually thousandths of an inch. You can get them in metric also, but they're thin, various levels of thickness where you can go in and check for clearances and so forth. A go, no-go gauge. Now you can make your own go, no-go gauges. A go, no-go gauge is one where, for example, you could have a cylindrical piece that's turned to two different diameters, and you have a hole and you want to make sure that hole is large enough but not too large. The go part, it fits in. If it's too small, the go part won't go in. If the go part goes in, all right, it's large enough, turn it over. The no-go side goes in, it's too large. If the no-go doesn't go in, then it's appropriate. And in manufacturing, where you have to check things very quickly and you have a tolerance, that means large enough but not too large, you can use a go, no-go gauge. A level. If you don't have a couple of levels, you're going to have trouble with rail being level. You'll have derailments and so forth because it's not level. So get yourself a set of levels, a short one, but you also ought to have one that's a carpenter's level for your work. A laser. You say, what, a laser? Lasers are now cheap, and they are good measures, and they are good ways to project. I have a bridge on my layout that's quite long. It's about almost 18 inches. Well, I built one side of the layout, and I said, okay, I want to have the other side of the bridge. I want the bridge to be level. How do I get the height of that easily? Now, you could use a piece of tubing with water in it and bend the tubing and hold it until the water level is the same. But I put that laser on one side, it shot the light across. I made an adjustment for the thickness of the laser, and my bridge ended up being level, and it was very quick to do. Surface gauge. I'm having a senior moment. A surface gauge is a gauge that has a base to it, and it has a movable pointer on it, so that on that flat piece of glass, you put your car on it, and you say, is my car sitting level or is it tilted? With the surface gauge, you can go around, you can set it to the height of the bottom of the body, for example, and take care of that. Are there some others that you can think of that are important?
Calipers.
Calipers, yes.
Scale ruler.
Digital
Say that again,
vernier.
please.
Scale ruler.
A scale rule, yes.
Digital vernier.
You say digital vernier?
Mm-hmm.
Vernier caliper, yeah.
For a caliper, yeah, okay. So there are a lot. And here's a selection of my collection. Let's start at the top, a framing square. And by the way, you don't have to get a big long one like this. You can get smaller ones. I have one, I think it's only 12 inches, 12 by 6, but is very valuable in model rearing, especially when you're doing framing for the layout. A standard tri-square, a very important carpenter's tool and very important modeler's tool. And this is a modeler square. I use this thing all the time in my modeling. And you can see by the one up above, it's what, about 3 inches by about 2.5. And in fact, Micromark sells a whole set of them, which includes some very thin ones. And that's sort of on my want list. This is a architect's rule, and it has various scales on it and is very valuable. This is a pocket rule, and the clip on it has, you see this little perpendicular piece that's on it. That's very nice for checking depths because you can slide that up and down there. Here are some calipers, compass. Here is that vernier caliper. It's a digital one. I can use a standard micro, I can't think of the word of it now, micrometer. I can use a standard micrometer, but that requires a lot of skill to use that. These digital ones are so quick and easy to use. And then you got various other kinds of tooling here, 90 degrees, 45 degrees, a centering tool. And here's your scale rule.
John,
So,
another one.
Okay.
A
I'm listening.
hermaphrodite divider.
Was that? Wait a minute. Let me come
Hermaphrodite
back here
divider.
for a second. Let's see.
Yeah, I don't know that
here. Is that what this is?
Might
This
be.
one
You
here,
got a
you
flat
can
edge and
measure
then
a
a point edge.
distance from a point from a surface. And I
Yes.
forget the name of that. Okay. I've heard of that one before, and I probably, if you showed it to me, I would have it. A good long steel rule is always important. Remember I talked to you about that laser. Here is my laser. Short and long levels are also valuable to you. Remember I talked to you about a surface gauge. It's sitting on a piece of glass. Here's a small one and here's a large one. This is all adjustable. And once you get that point measured perpendicular from the piece of glass, you can then take that and slide that around the piece of glass and see if something is the same height from the piece of glass or that your car is sitting level and so forth. We didn't talk about thread gauges. Here's your NMRA gauge. Here is your KD coupler gauge. And dividers are very good for repeating dimensions. And of course, we have then the calipers. And by the way, notice that this is outside measurement and inside measurement. Can you guys see the arrow moving back and forth?
Yeah.
I can now, but I
Okay.
had to enlarge my screen.
All right. So let's talk about clamps, spring clamps, C-clamps, bar clamps. Let me tell you, a bar clamp can be really valuable and they come in small sizes and large sizes. When your wife is going to throw out some clamps for her hair, for doing hair doing, a lot of those clamps can be adjusted, manipulated, changed, and made to a valuable modeling tool. Alligator clamps, magnets, wedges, bench vise, machinist vise, hemostat, which Rich talked about, a V-block and clamp, portable bench with clamping table and stops, as I showed you initially. Toggle clamps, horizontal and vertical. We'll come back to those. Elastics, all kinds of rubber bands and elastics can be helpful for you. We have the third hand, and I'll show you a copy of that. And pins. I have just a couple of pieces of styrofoam with pins stuck in, all different sizes. And there are just so many ways in which you can clamp, hold, and position things. Here is the lamp over my workbench, and you will see here are small bar clamps. Here are larger ones. I got these at the dollar store, $1 a piece. Spring clamps. You've got all different sizes of spring clamps. A lot of times we would have these plastic hangers for use around the washing machine or that to hang something to dry, and they would have clamps on them, and the hanger itself would break. Well, I would harvest those clamps on the end of them, and there they all are. Here are different kinds of spring clamps of different sizes, and this spring clamp I was able to modify with a bar in it, and it was very useful. And here we talk about elastics up here in the upper left. So there's just a plethora of different kinds of clamps that I have here. Magnets, the old laundry clamps. This one I use for soldering, especially with a torch, and you can see that it's suffered, but still serves well. Adjustable bar clamps that you can have, and spring clamps. By the way, when you're clamping things, have some blocks of wood. I have a whole bunch of these little blocks of wood that I can use in a clamp in order to protect surfaces so that you don't crush things. The electrical clamps are also valuable. And these are ones that I've harvested from hangers and that have gone away. So, and then continuing on, this thing is called the third hand. I will come back and show you the toggle clamps some more. Here are the hemostats, or my wife is a nurse, she called them the Kelly clamps. Here is a machinist block. It's, and I forget the name of it now. I have a senior moment, but, oh, sorry. It has this horseshoe shaped clamp. It grabs into the grooves on the side, and the spring comes down, and you can use this on a drill press to hold parts, to drill, and so forth. Here's a little machinist clamp, and I just use a regular clamp to clamp that to the side of the bench for some very small parts I want to process. And here's something my father had in his tool collection, and it's a clamp, like a machinist clamp, but it's handheld. And by the way, you know, you can get these wedge-shaped shims at the Home Depot or places like that. If you push one against the other, here's the smaller edge, the other piece is out of the picture, there is the smaller edge, and you shove those together, they make a wedge. And you can, if you have a solid edge on something, you can push them together and create a clamping, especially if you've got some kind of an unusual situation. So let's talk about fixtures. The fixture is a device that holds a component or assembly of components or an object in a position so you can perform a process or processes on it. So there are some fixtures we have that are sitting right on our workbench. But before we get to that, the device has stability and safety. So you can get your fingers away from sharp knives and so forth. The process can be controlled because parts are not going to move. And the fixture can provide you with precision and repeatability, where there are multiple components that are to receive the process. It's not a jig. You'll read magazine articles, you'll listen to people talking about things, and they say, oh, I got a jig. It is not a jig. The Society of Manufacturing Engineers has a dictionary, and they discuss this in detail. And so it's just like a turnout is not a switch. A switch is the moving rails in a turnout in railroading. Fixtures are not jigs. So, for example, this is a scratch-built platform. It has complete detail underneath. It's got joists, and it's got cross beams, and you can see that it's got these cross beams here in order for it to not rack. That's made, the top here are stirrers. This is O scale. The top here are stirrers, coffee stirrers, and I've stained them differently because a platform like this gets a lot of wear and tear, and so they have to replace those. And I can tell you, oh, and these vertical ones are balsa wood.
What's it?
They're square pieces, quarter-inch square balsa wood, which is 1 inch square. My friends, I can stand on this thing. It is that strong. How did I make this? I made it using a fixture. And all of these here were processed using fixtures. This is my first trolley car I built when I was 16 years old. And this ladder was built using a fixture. This fender was originally a brass etching. Too many crashers on layouts, and it got destroyed. So I remade this with brass strip. It was made with a fixture, a soldering fixture. The components were held there in position. I was able to solder them, and you can see it looks pretty good. This part is original. Fixtures. As I said, this platform was made with fixtures. This trestle, each of these bents being put together to make the structure of the trestle was made with an assembly fixture. This trolley car is made with the ICC parts. This is O scale. These ICC parts are cast, injection molded. And the thing is, when you have a mold, you have to have draft in the mold, and otherwise you'll never get the part out. What is the draft? It's a slight angle. If you just try to glue these components apart, each one is separate window thing, you would have big gaps in here because of the draft. So I have a piece of tooling which is not a fixture. And that will lead us to talking about what a jig is. Oh, before that, here is a piece of styrofoam board. And here are pieces of that balsa wood. And you see a scale drawing here that was put on it. And this was assembled upside down before the planking for the surface was put on. And it was assembled right here. And it came out. I didn't have to do any measuring or anything. I knew the sizes of the pieces. I could cut these to various lengths and then assembled it right here on this. and I think I use Ailing sticky glue on it, glue. So you can see the bottom with all of the parts, and you can see that these three were assembled here, and then these three were assembled here, and so forth. And here are some examples of other jigs that I have. I have them on the table here. I'm sorry, I misspoke, fixtures. Here's the soldering fixture for that fender. I have, it's hard to see, but there's three little holes on here, and this is a bending fixture for making a frame for an awning on a building. The ladder on that little line car. This is from when I was 16 years old. I made this. I very carefully drew the lines, put in nails, the brads, and then what I did was I ran wire back and forth. Now, yes, I got some waste there. I was learning, but it did make a ladder that works quite well. Here you can see a clamp that's used to hold down a component on tooling. This is a standard, this is a commercially available wire bending fixture. And these little pins can be moved to make different kinds of bends. This is a cradle for, and I'll show you this after. This is a cradle for holding in this case, a trolley car, so that I could then work on the bottom of it and putting on my resistors and tanks and so forth, without destroying the car. Now, I made this after I dropped the car twice. I wasn't smart enough after it rolled off the workbench once. When it happened the second time, I said, I got to make the cradle. And I'll show you, it's not complex and it's valuable to use. And it's great for when you want to clean wheels. And here you can see the cradle without the trolley. And this is all stuff that was from my junk pile or stuff. This kind of foam, I forget what, some appliance or something came in it. But the fact that these bumpy parts are here, I can put the trolley car in there upside down with the poles on, and there's no damage to the poles. And then these side pieces go in, and the side pieces, this dimension here is larger than this dimension, so that I can handle cars of various widths by just tucking it in. So let's talk about jigs. Now, jigs are tooling that holds a component or an assembly or an object in a precision position so that the tooling guides a separating process. That sounds a little complex. It really isn't. First of all, most jigs are fixtures first, but then they have an additional part in their tooling that allows you to do precision separating processes. So you can have, for example, Stanley makes dowel jigs. You know, when you put two pieces of wood together, you don't have a very end to end, you don't have a very strong joint. But if you drill holes in both pieces of the ends of the wood and you put dowels in there and then assemble them, you're going to have a good, strong joint. But how do you drill those holes to make sure everything matches up? Well, the doweling jig that Stanley Tools sold, you clamped it on the end. It was designed so for various thicknesses of wood. You drilled your holes in there, and then you were done when you put your dowels in. So that tooling guides that separating process, and it may guide it, by the way, in numbers of ways. But one is it may guide the workpiece into the tooling versus guiding the tool into the workpiece. So you can have various setups. Now, if the tooling is not controlled, it's not a jig. So there's no such thing as a painting jig, or a welding jig, or a gluing jig, or any of those others, because it is not controlling a separating process. It's rather simple. And you'll see people misusing the term all along. So here again are these sides, these component sides, and I use different colors here. When this is painted, you wouldn't see it anyhow, but I use different colored ones because in doing this kind of instruction, so that you see that they're separate, but they have been processed on a piece of tooling to get rid of the draft, the angle on the edges. So they glue up, oh, sorry. Hit the wrong pin there, okay? I make a lot of my ties, railroad ties. I cut my own, and I have a jig to cut these ties, and I can cut them rapidly and a lot of them. As you can see, these parts go onto the car. This is a control tower, not a control tower but a tower, a railroad tower. And my mother made this. My mother was a great model builder. And this was for our Lionel trains. And these were Skyline kits. For those of you old enough to remember the cardboard Skyline kits. Pardon? But what happened is over the years, the staircase got kind of beat up. And so I had to use a jig in order to cut new stair treads for the new staircase. And I've got to replace, I see this one's crooked. Yes, it is. I got to replace that one, get that one right. Now, here are some examples of a commercial jig. Are you familiar with the this device here? It's got a knife underneath this here. It runs down a guide, and you put your piece of paper in here or a thin cardboard, and it'll go up against the guide, and it's adjustable so that when you run this knife down there, it gives you a parallel piece, a strip of paper, or it could be thin styrene. In doing the tooling, I've used some double-sided tape, which has been very valuable in processing. Here you see a strip of paper. It's kind of bent because it was put on the double-sided tape after the strip was made here. And the double-sided tape held it down on this just piece of paper. And then I was able to paint this strip. And this strip ended up being a replacement that you can see on the building. Try and do that with an X-Acto knife in a nice straight line. And you'll find you'll have frustration. You can do it, but it'll be tough. You're familiar with these two tools, the chopper, and the chopper is a jig because it holds the part in a position that is precision at 90 degrees, or that's a 30, 60, 90 there, or what have you, and the knife goes down and it gives you the same cut. The duplicator is the same there, and you run your knife across there. But keeping the knife up against the fence and it holds the part, you've got a nice way to create strips. This is a jig I made, and I'll show you the actual one after we're done here. You know, when you buy four-sided wood in Home Depot, the manufacturer makes this wood with, lost my, really accurate 90-degree corners. So if you take a piece of that and you screw it on a base, you've got a perfect 90-degree corner. Well, if I just tape on some very fine abrasive sandpaper and make sure it's nice and straight, I can then slide my side back and forth and take the draft off of the part. So when they glue together, they're nice and flush. And by the way, I always put a groove in here. There's a groove in here because you don't want the abrasive material to start having your workpiece slide up. You've got to have a way to get rid of the abrasive material that's lost as you slide this back and forth. There's a material called Veroboard. It looks like stripes or strips of copper clad as they're used on circuit boards. I use this a lot for wiring my trolleys and for overhead lighting, and that's not running a whole bunch of wires. Well, how do you cut those strips? Well, I have a Veroboard saw guide. The piece of wood on top clamps on the bottom piece, and I line it up exactly in the strip in between. I can then take my saw and holding it up against this piece of wood, and I put some wax on that piece of wood and wax on the saw. That's what this here is, wax on the side of the saw. I can go back and forth and I can get perfectly cut strips. Here is my tie jig. It's a jig. It's going to guide a saw on a fixture, but it guides the saw, and because it guides the saw, it is a jig. By the way, you probably have a version of this that you use for cutting wood.
Firebox.
So here are my ties. I shove them in, I hold them in place, and I cut them with a saw. You can see there's a block on this side here. The block on this side lines up perfectly with the groove here so that I get nice 90-degree ties. And I can cut, I've cut 15, 20 ties at the same time in one cut. There you can see it disassembled. And I found out, why should I do all that work with that back saw? Are you familiar with the universal tool? You know, you can get these at Harbor Freight. It has a blade on it. And I found that by keeping the blade in my guide there, I could cut those ties in no time. And they're all the same size. So just some general design principles. You want to use stops. Stops are for precise location. Make sure they're robust so that they don't bend or shift or anything. And it's always a good idea to have an odd number of stops. If you have an even number of stops, one of them is not going to line up. So use odd numbers. When you have clamps on your tooling, make sure there's clearances for your fingers. Make sure there are clearances for the clamp so you don't destroy it or destroy the cutting tool, because the clamp is liable to be a hard material. Tolerances, that means plus or minus for accuracy. If you're going to be doing a jig, you want it to be accurate. If you're going to be using an assembly fixture and you want 90-degree corners, it's got to be accurate. So take time to build them for accuracy. Make sure that if you have any separating processes that have chips or debris or even liquids, that you have troughs or gaps or drainage so you can get rid of that. Remember, a painting fixture, you want to have.
What time is it?
Pardon? Someone said something. If it's mounted on a machine, be really careful that it's safe. Because remember, a machine is going to give you power, and that power can cause stuff to fly, or for you to get your fingers or your body in a position that you don't want. And especially if you're doing jobs, use safety glasses. All right. If you are working on a workbench, it's a good idea to have a way of clamping your fixture to the workbench. That gives you an extra hand. A cleat on the bottom is a piece of wood, 90 degrees. It's got to be a strong piece of wood, and you can clamp it in your bench vise, and then your fixture won't move around and you can then work safely. And that's what I was going to say there. Make sure the item is clamped or held securely in the tooling. And we'll talk about toggle clamps and wedges. Those can be used. By the way, Legos are great pieces of tooling for casting and so forth. You can put them together, take them apart. They're easy to clean and reuse. I have a box of 1,000 pop sticks. I use them for everything, as well as those coffee stirrers. All right. You know, for an assembly picture, it doesn't have to be built on wood. Foam board is perfectly good. It's flat. It can be glued to, so you can put guides and everything else on the foam board. And it's a great assembly fixture tooling, and it's cheap. And you'll find out that you'll use them again and again. Homosode is also good. And the nice thing about Homosode is you can pin into it. It's easy and good to use. You just got to be careful if it gets wet, because it can lose its dimensional stability. Plastic. You can make tooling with plastic, and a lot of things don't stick to plastic. And so it's easy to process. You can get plastics with dimensional 90-degree angles on them, and you can use them for your tooling as well as for your building your models. Wood is very sturdy. And as I said, you can get dimensional lumber where it's got 90-degree corners and it's parallel. Of course, you can glue it together. It can be quite strong. And of course, you can use screws also to add to it. Plywood, again, good stability, providing you get a good surface. And if you got something that's a bit larger and you need a lot of dimensional stability and you don't want warping, plywood's a good choice. Metals, of course, ferrous and non-ferrous. And there are some metals that you can solder on because the solder won't stick to that metal. Others. Safety glasses. Keep your fingers away and your body away, and watch out for long sleeves that can catch in tooling. We had a girl in one of our classes, a woman, and we kept telling her, you got to tie your hair back. She didn't tie her hair back. It got caught in the drill press, and we got the drill press stopped. But she was hurting. I mean, it pulled her hair. So you got to watch that out. Of course, we all don't wear our hair that way anymore. Use quality materials. Make sure your tooling is strong enough for the process that's being done, and that it doesn't damage the tooling, nor you, nor the component. And in railroading, we use the term follow a safe path. And that is absolutely critical. By the way, you can mark your tooling also with danger zones. You can just use magic markers or a red marker, and no fingers beyond this point is a good idea, just in case you get distracted. So that's my presentation. What I'd like to do is move my camera around, just show you a couple of things that I have on the table here. Some that you've seen already, but just to enhance what we did here. So now let me see if I can end up sharing. No, it's not sharing. Oh, I have to share it. Good. Okay. Now I'm on my other camera here, and bear with me for a minute here while I do just a couple of adjusting of things. Does anybody want to take a break? You do? Why don't we take 5 and then come back on here? So if anybody wants to get a cup of coffee or restroom or that. So we'll be back in 5.
Doug, that Circus City decal place was a real find. Thanks for the tip.
Yeah, I mean, he turns stuff around fast too.
Yeah.
So,
the biggest amount of time was the shipping of the shell and then getting it back.
Right. I was surprised you got it back that quick.
Well, I haven't received it yet, but he received it on Monday, and he shipped everything out on Wednesday. It'll probably come tomorrow or Monday.
Yeah.
He sent a priority mail.
I mean, I've had stuff I've sent him that went out. It got shipped the same day he got it. So.
Yeah. That. Well, he was doing 2 jobs because Rich Krysak was doing an O-scale version of it. So he sort of piggybacked the artwork and made for both the O and the HO.
Oh, good.
Yeah. And he said he'll be able to do the bow tie decals for the Shorefast cars.
Yeah. That won't be hard. But of course, I got to design up the car. Unless we can talk Volkmar into doing O-scale.
Probably can, but it's going to be frightfully expensive, I suspect.
Yeah.
It's just a little less for your kids to inherit.
Yeah, I know. No, Gary's having some decent success getting, making bodies on the resin printer. So he's got to do it in 2 pieces because, you can't go tall enough, but he's just printing vertically. He was having trouble. He's doing that, doing a freight trailer, CA&E freight trailer, and he was having a little bit of trouble with it.
Yeah.
The edges getting distorted, just because it's so big. So, but I'm merrily printing away. I got my fenders back from Shapeways because I designed them, to be 3D printed and then sent them off to be done in brass. Because like John was saying, things on the end of cars have to be East Penn proof. So
yeah.
So they came back pretty nice. So
Yeah, I have a couple card that have 3D printed plastic fenders, and you better not look at them too hard.
Yeah, these are probably sturdier than they even needed to be. I just didn't want to push the boundaries on, getting the printing done. I tried to follow their guidelines as well as I could.
Yeah.
So, but they came out pretty good. So there's one of them. So I just test printed them in resin just to make sure they look right. Found some problems.
You can ask Volkmar next month what would be entailed in him doing the Surefast car in 3D.
Well, this is 3D printed, so this is my my Berkshire Hills car. That's a 3D print, and the whole body is one piece, and then the roof is separate, and I just have it held on with magnets. So yeah, it can't. And the one Ed has is better than this one because there are some issues with the design, just the relief on things and the fact that all the window frames were missing. So, and that was another tool, another separation tool was a Cricut because I made the window frames with the Cricut. You never could have done that by hand.
Yeah.
So. And you can't even tell. I mean, now that I've got it primed, and you wouldn't know that they weren't part of it. So.
Okay, why don't I just go over some of these things that I have here to just demonstrate some things. Let's start with the cradle. Very simply made. A couple of wallboard screws, and I glued it also. And so you make it for the size of the models that you want to use. And then this is that rippled foam core. Cut that so that fit in there nicely. And then you don't have to worry about the roof detail when you put your car in there. And as I said, these are, the thickness is the same, but I cut them a little longer. And so I can put them in this way, I can put them in this way, or I can put one and one, and I get the different dimensions to clamp the car. So usually I put one in and then slip the other one in. And then I can clean the wheels or do whatever I want at the bottom of the car. Now, one possible modification that you could make on this is to make one of these hang down a little lower to create a cleat, so you could put it in your bench vise and then it's nice and solid, it won't move. Sometimes I've found this moving around on the bench. I mean, it's not got a floor. This is an example of a cleat on the bottom of tooling. See this? I can plant I can clamp that right in my bench vise. Of course, it'll be this way, and then I can use it. So that's valuable, and it would have saved that orange trolley car from those 2 disaster falls. That's weights inside the car. This is the fixture I use for cutting my ties. And I cut my own ties on the table saw, and I use the John Durr approach. He says, why should you cut a nice fat tie and then you're going to use a ton of ballast to ballast it? He says, make it nice and thin and you'll get the effect, and then you save a lot of ballast. And so John Durr, who's a very creative guy and a good guy, I learned that from him, and I do this on a table saw. I have my own table saw. So you can see where this is the dimension of the ties. They're 9-foot ties, and this is one guide, and this is the other one, and therefore this is a jig, and it holds them in place. Now, I've been thinking about a modification. What I do is I hold the ties up against the fence, and then I get the nice accurate cut. But I'm thinking, what if I took something like this and mounted it here? I have to figure out exactly how I'll do it. It'll still clear the tool, but as you can see, this is a thing called a toggle clamp. And what you do is, now you see it lifted up because it's got pressure, because you can adjust it for its height. And you can adjust it to stay at the end also, or you got many adjustments there to do it. But if it's screwed in, you see, it'll hold the part down. And these are cheap. This is a vertical one, and this one is a horizontal one. If you wanted to push something against a fence, you can see that this one gives you a horizontal motion. And you can see with the bolt there, you've got adjustment for the end of it, the clamping head of it. It's going to go. So you can hold something horizontally, you can hold something vertically, and I think these were a little over $1 a piece. Just toggle, like your toggle switch, toggle clamp on Amazon, and it'll take you right to it. And of course, you know the country that this was made in, where everything is made these days. So a couple of things on that there. That cleat is very valuable. And especially now that I'm using a machine to make these cuts, if I created a clamp that I could clamp them down, then I could just use the machine itself. Now, I talked to you about the surface gauge. This is a surface gauge. Machine steel bottom, and it has a vertical shaft on it, and that is all adjustable. And you've got your, I guess they call this a stylus, to measure. Now, the reason I have that piece of tubing on there is because that end is dangerous. I can tell you how I know. But it can be adjusted in all sorts of ways. See, up or down, you can rotate it so that, for example, if we're trying to check and see if a boxcar sits level, you see that I can find one point there, tighten this up. Now it won't tighten up. And then you can check all around the car to see if it's listing and so forth. And you can do that also for a foundation on a building, whatever you want, you can do that. And by the way, it does have minor adjustments here where you can also adjust it up and down. So these are quite valuable and for modeling, and you can get smaller ones. But I'm in O gauge, so everything has to be big. While we're talking about those kinds of measurements, are you familiar with this? This is called a KD coupler gauge. And it is really valuable, especially if you're going to be doing some freight operations. Now, I'm doing this on the surface here, but you can see how the coupler is the right height. And the other nice thing about it is, and by the way, this sits on the rails. So you put that on your rails and you put your car on the rails, and it's more accurate because you don't know how thick the flanges are here. All right. Now, if you turn it around and put it in this way, this surface here is to check the height of the bottom of the car where you're going to then screw in the draft gear, the coupler box. And so if you don't get that right, then the coupler is going to be high or low. And you want that to be straight that way. And this part down here is how low it's supposed to be the air hose, but it's supposed to be, if it gets too low, it's going to pick your turnouts, and you're going to have problems there. So those are some kinds of tooling that you will find valuable. Here's something that I didn't cover, but I purchased recently. It's a battery-powered soldering iron. How many times have you been on the layout and you got your soldering iron and the wire gets caught and it pulls a tree down, or it knocks something over, or knocks something off the layout? This is rechargeable. It's got its own special wall wart that plugs in over here somewhere. And you can, you're not supposed to, you can charge it in here, but don't have it on in here because it's hot and it'll melt things. But it has its own little stand on the side there to keep the hot tip away from the plastic. So I don't know, it's about, I think I paid somewhere around $30 for this. It is so nice. I take this off of the workbench, go over to the layout and do repairs in my overhead, and it works quite well. It takes about 30 to 40 seconds for the head of it to get hot enough. And so that's another thing.
What's the wattage on that soldering iron?
Oh, I don't know. Let's see. It says 3.7 volts, 12 watts.
12 watts, okay.
So I wouldn't be building a O-scale brass engine with it, but I might be doing O-scale handrails with it.
Yeah.
Have any of you ever made one of these? It's used with a jeweler's saw. You clamp it in a vise, and then you saw up and down. And a jeweler's saw, the teeth of the blade are aimed towards the handle. So the cutting stroke is the downstroke. But the nice thing about this is the piece, sometimes this small, can sit right on here, and they're not going to get bent, and you don't break your blade easily. And that's held in a vise. And that's an old tool. Just for you to get a good close-up, that's my Fender soldering fixture. All of the pieces of brass ran up against this little fence, and they're separated here. Took a little time to make this and make it accurate, but as you can see, I have soldered a number of things. And then here is the perpendicular part to the fender goes up against the ends of these little things. That's a soldering fixture. Now, here is something that I use with my razor saw, and I saw these pieces apart. But notice I didn't say it was a jig because there is no guiding for the saw. I just have to watch the lines of the boards on there and saw along those lines. It's not that much of a precision tool, but I'm able to get pretty good cuts with it. This would be better with this toggle clamp if it was screwed on there to hold the piece in place. Now, see, a toggle clamp can be useful. And if I was going to do that, I'd probably put a cleat on the bottom of this so I could clamp it in the vise. So that is a work in progress that can be improved. Let's see. Oh, the Vero board. Now the Vero board, you'll notice that I do have a toggle clamp on it. And let me see if you can get that. The reflection there is a problem. You can see that these are strips.
John, if you move that to your left a little bit, it'll be more in focus because the background is in focus, but not the tool.
How's that?
Still a little fuzzy.
Yeah. Let me see if I'm from back here, then it's too far away. The strips are going this way. So this block is movable, but when I clamp it down exactly on the space between a copper strip. By the way, these copper strips all have holes in them, so you can use circuit board components on them. And then what I do, and this has a cleat, I clamp it in, and then what I do is, now since when I'm sawing, this is waxed, the blade is waxed, and then I just use my finger here to keep it perpendicular and up against my guide here, and I can saw right down the middle of one of those strips. So virtually I have no waste. And you can make it for 2, 3, 4 strips, depending upon what your electrical needs are. For it, I've used 2 and 3 strips for lighting on the roof of a trolley car, and then used LEDs. And you can even fit surface mounts on here. And if you want to stop a circuit, you use a number 32 drill, and you drill through one of those. You don't have to go all the way through, but it will break the strip, and so you have 2 circuits rather than 1. Okay. Here is my fixture for making these, to take the draft off of these parts. And I made the surface that I'm going to show you how I slide it back and forth. I made this removable so I can replace it. And there is a groove in here for debris. Now, this is really fine. I don't know, there's about 200 to 300 grit paper, abrasive paper here, sandpaper. And I've replaced this once, because I've made a bunch of trolleys with these components. So you just hold it there, and then you can go back and forth, and you can check your work, go back and forth. But this is going to give you the 90-degree precision so that you can get your part to glue together nice and closely. And I guess that's pretty much the end. This was my original one on the ladder, and it really came out quite good. But as I said, there was a waste in the wire going back and forth. That could be improved. And this is that commercial wire bending fixture. And these pins can be removed for whatever you want. And then you've got other kinds of bends that you can make. And so that's a simple tool. Mongaup charges a lot of money for one of those things. But how about questions or suggestions? All right, hearing none, I'm going to try something out. I got my layout running. It'll take me a minute to walk downstairs with the computer and set it up. And I'll see if we can have some trolleys running, and I will then aim this little camera around. It's got about a 4-foot wire on it. I do have a trolley set up. I don't have it set up right now, but I have a camera that rides on a trolley car or on a flat car, and battery powered, and then it transmits it. But I could not get the technology available to be able to broadcast it to you. It's a case of connectors, and the camera receiver that's not a station, that's stationary, not the camera that's riding on the car, has either a coax, cable TV connector, or what is it, red, white, yellow. But how do I get those to an HDMI video input? I don't know if a cable like that is made. That's going to be for the future. So why don't we go downstairs, and we'll try running the trolley. Is that okay, Charlie?
Yes, yes. By all
Okay. So I have to leave that in there. These new computers they're very light and they're thin, and now you can't get standard USBs. I had to buy this separate connector for the standard USB to this new USB 3 or something it's called. But so we will navigate downstairs to the layout, and we'll try this out. And of course, this is a case for Murphy's Law on steroids, because you can be sure that the trolley poles will start popping off of everything and stalling and all of those.
Hopefully he didn't have a Wi-Fi issue in the basement.
Yeah.
It's good.
One comment on tools.
Oh, okay. Got you back.
I mentioned in the comments that I found very long steel rulers and T-squares to be useful when making modules, etc. For instance, The special tool I found was sold as a drywall T-square
Yeah.
with a 4-foot long leg.
Okay. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Somebody give me feedback. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. This is a view of the station. And we're going to get some traffic shortly. The traffic is over there coming up the grade. And on the lower level, we got a freight coming along. So we'll wait for those to come. The station was one of those Plasticville, I think it was, stations. Made a whole number of changes to it, changed the platform, changed the doors on it, and so forth. And we got a trolley coming. Oh, that headlight really blinded it, didn't it? Oh, great. I told you something would stall.
John, you're running everything of DCC, right?
We're going to do a meet. coming up a 4% grade.
John,
Yes.
you have all your equipment equipped with the DCC decoders, right?
Hang on a second. I have to get nearer to the computer to hear you.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, John, you have everything equipped with DCC decoders, right?
Yes.
Yeah, because we have a new member, Jim Ingram, and he wants to know about installing decoders in O-scale trolleys.
Okay.
Now, do you have sound decoders or?
Second here. Where have I got my phone? Following you. Okay. All right, let me just stop something here. Okay. Yeah, yeah, you can give him my email address and we can talk about it. And,
Okay.
you know, it's possible also to use this technology to actually show it.
Yeah.
Who is that? Is that Charlie that asked me that?
Yes, John.
Yeah. Yeah, we can talk about that, Charlie.
Yeah,
I'd be glad
yeah.
to show him.
Then I'll give him your email, and I think you're maybe the one he can talk to.
Okay.
And I think he splits his time. He's a new member, and I think he splits his time between Arizona and Williamsport.
Yeah, that's exactly correct, if you can hear me. Can you hear me, Charlie?
Yes.
Actually, I'd like his phone number if he doesn't mind me having it. I'd like to call him on the phone sometime if that's possible.
Thanks a lot, John. I have to go now.
This is a new car I got. It's a Lionel, and my brother got it for me. I've already changed the wheels, and I'm ready to put the Katie couplers on it. It is beautifully made, and I don't know. I'm really hesitant to put any weathering on it. It is just so nicely done. It's a milk car. The other thing I had to find out by looking at it or studying some other stuff to see whether it has tanks in it or whether it was done differently. I lost where my other trolley is. Oh, there it is. Wanted to show you a kit here. There's always a problem of how do you unload hopper cars on a layout without having some trestle and all the rest of that. And this conveyor is a kit that's sold. It's a bit of a challenge to put together, but I have it there. And this is a prototype way of unloading hopper cars, is to put the conveyor underneath one of the hoppers, and then somehow I guess they control the amount of coal. I must admit that my dinky toy trucks here are a little bit small in scale, but well, they'll do for now. But it was, as I said, a challenging build, but not impossible. One of the things I've done on my layout is I've adopted the New York, Ontario, and Western colors, at least to the best of my ability, because they are not, we don't have the color photography. The railroad stopped running in '57, but of the yellow sides, and it's sort of like a blue-green trim on windows and doors. And so I've adopted that because this layout connects with the O&W for interchange over here in this yard. It's incomplete, and that New York Central diesel will be painted O&W. It was an NW2. And so this color I've adopted, and you'll notice on the station is brick or block, but you see the windows do have that same sort of green color, blue-green. And this is an electrical cabinet. Same thing, brick, but you can see the trim is the yellow-green. But I've done the same here on my stations. And there's a station up on top there. There's a yellow trolley behind it. I don't know how well that's, you can see that without my taking the computer over there where the trolley's going. But again, that yellow and green. And it's kind of fun to do, to make things have a family color code. And Pennsylvania Railroad did a lot of that too. Here is another model that I did, and I repainted with the colors of the railroad. So that's what I've got here. The whistle post is right in front of that. Well, have to deal with it. Okay. So, that's my layout. I'll continue showing photographs of it. And if you got any questions, please ask. And I must tell you that I hadn't run my layout in about 9 months. I was just busy with other things, and what a problem it was to get the track clean and everything back running in running order. And I will follow Ed Scruchus's very important principle, and that is one revenue car a day on the point end to end on the layout. And that does work. If you keep running them, they will run. If you leave them, then you got a cleanup job that's just takes a lot of time. And
I second that.
The trolleys hesitating and that they still do, but they've been running fairly well today. So any questions or comments?
What is the lifespan of the decoders in your trolleys? Are you having any trouble with failures?
From 10 seconds to years. One of the things that you learn, Jim, when you do this is you got to make sure that you don't overload the decoder. Now that Pittman freight motor has a DC 95 motor in it, and the decoder in there will handle up to 10 amps. The little trolley car it's got a Wagner or a Q car truck in it with a CAN motor, and that has a decoder that will blow at 2 amps. But one of the things you got to watch out is with trolley cars, especially if you use bulbs rather than LEDs, you can easily with the motor and then with all the lighting inside and the headlight in that, you got to be careful you don't exceed that limit, because otherwise it lets the smoke out of the decoder. In other words, it fries it. So you have to be careful with that. What I'm starting to do, and one of my trolleys, this one died on me just 2 days ago. And I think the decoder got fried. So one thing I've got to be careful about is not allowing the lighting inside the car to exceed what the decoder can handle. I'm going to start wiring my cars where the wiring comes into the trolley pole, and it will go directly to the lighting of the car, not the headlight, because the headlight can be controlled with the decoder, but all the inside lighting will be direct, just like a regular DC trolley car. And then the rest of the wiring will go through the decoder to control direction of the trolley, the headlights, and any other thing that you wanted to do to make it perform in a way that you wanted it to perform. So that's kind of a long answer. The cheapest decoders, now you can get decoders with sound and everything else like that. I haven't done any of that yet. But the cheapest decoders, there's that place called Yankee Dabbler over in Belmar, hobby shop, and actually a nationwide distributor of decoders. And you can probably get a 2 amp decoder to run a CAN motor trolley for somewhere in the neighborhood of $20, maybe a little less. So And it doesn't make any difference what manufacturer you use because the standards go across the different manufacturers. So I have my unit here is Digitrax, but I have NCE decoders in some of my trolleys. I have Digitrax decoders. And this is another brand that I have. And that there was a hobby shop in New Jersey. They went out of business, and I just bought some other decoders, and they're fine for Bernie cars or that. So that's kind of a long answer, but there just are other variables. So, you know, Model Rectifier Corporation, or MRC. I have a couple of their decoders. They all work the same, and yeah, and they're the simple ones. You know, it's essentially throttle control with one or two functions. You can turn your headlights on or off, or something like that.
Thank you.
Okay. By the way, your initial expense, and I haven't purchased one of these units yet, but the major expense is going to be your command center, which is it's like it performs a very different function, but sort of like what your power pack is. And in a way, it's a mini computer. It provides you with direct current, and the one I have will go up to 18 volts, and that's what I'm running on here. So you'll be in between $300 and $500 for that. But once you buy that, that's it, and it'll run at 18 at what's it?
Well,
I forget how many amps it is.
Also
It'll
depending
run a lot
on
of trolley cars.
also depending on how many trolley cars you
And,
have,
The
you may
only
need a
thing you got to
booster.
pay for is your throttles. And you've seen these, Jim, because we were over at the the trolley meets. So this throttle here will handle two engines or two trolleys. And this one here has a lot of buttons on it for all the kinds of programming, because you have to do certain things in programming your trolleys to run properly. And it's half of that is I have to read the manual to do it. But then you got some smaller controllers like this that'll run one trolley car. And these ones have cables to them, but you can get radio control. I can run these on infrared because that device up there on the wall is an infrared receiver. And so if I put the batteries in the controllers, I can run those without the wires. You have to put the wire somewhere in your pocket, but you can walk around with it then. So, and there are, there's more stuff to it, but I would say if you're going to try it, the KISS principle applies. Keep it simple and try it out. By the way, one of the things that Digitrax does, you can, and you have done it at my house, you can run one trolley car that does not have a decoder at any time, just one. The other brands don't do that. And it's proprietary design inside the command center that Digitrax provides that. So not all of my trolleys have decoders. There's 3 of them lined up. 2 of them, those Bachmann cars from Baltimore. And a model that's underway here with those ICC, Indianapolis Car Company sides. So,
John,
any other questions?
John, do you?
See, I got a stall trolley. Just a second. here. I have 3 passing sidings on my layout, plus you can do passing at the loops also. But if you don't pay attention, one will stall and then all of a sudden you have a cornfield.
Good.
Bernie car runs nice.
All of my passing sidings have spring switches. Does it look better if I got my fingers out of the way? And I designed a system whereby they can be thrown in a non-spring position to go the alternate route, but in the springs position, they guide the trolleys to the right.
Right.
On both ends of the passing siding. That applies even up above here. Perhaps you heard the switch snapping there. So I still have a lot of work to do on the layout. It's never ending. And hopefully I'll get these other cars back running and putting some decoders in those Baltimore cars so they can operate here.
You mentioned running the headlight through the decoder. Won't trolley pull reverse take care of that, or is there some other reason?
What was that, Jim?
You mentioned running the headlight through the decoder. Is that necessary, or what's the advantage of doing that rather than just using the trolley poles to reverse the headlight?
Well, by having control of the headlight, that's like the prototype. Yeah. Now, a lot of times in trolley yards, they left the poles up and the inside lights stayed on the trolley cars when they were in storage, but they would turn the headlight off. And so it's an extra feature that doesn't cost you anything. And for one LED, you're not adding a lot of power.
Oh,
so,
whoa.
Yes.
So,
see, and I think having it through the decoder, then you can operate prototypically. You basically can dim the headlight when you pass an opposing car or signal the opposing car by flashing your headlight.
Oh, now I remember remembering the operation at the subway portal. The headlights and the interior lights were turned on only when you went into the subway in daytime.
Yeah, Jim, see the Barney car here.
Yeah.
Now, if I press this function 1 button, watch, I'm gonna press it and see the headlight comes off. Now the trolley car still runs without the headlight on. So, you know, it's an extra prototypical thing. Now, when I press that button, the interior lights still stay on.
Because either they're wired direct or they're wired on a separate button. Is that what you mean?
It's up to the modeler. How does the modeler want to replicate,
Yeah.
you know, to his satisfaction,
Yeah.
what he wants done? Oh, that just selected the other way.
Thank you for explaining.
But see, but on the prototype, the rules was the headlight was under the control of the motorman. The interior lights were under the control of the conductor.
Yeah, I was thinking of one-man PCCs. I'm just not quite old enough to remember the two-man variety. Oh yeah, and now I can remember years ago when the interior lights on the elevated trains were turned on when you went into the subway.
Hey, John, it's Steve Smith. Thanks for the informative presentation. I'm signing off. Good night, man.
Good night, Steve.
All right.
Bye.
John, well, thank you very much. And I guess
You're
we're,
welcome. Well, I'll just leave this here. I'm sorry I don't have more trolleys running, but it's enough to keep your,
yeah.
doing the camera thing.
Yes, yes. No, you need.
Just to keep it going.
Yeah, it's a great video. It was great that one section that basically had the Bernie and the train there running, pretty much pacing each other.
Yeah.
Bernie and urban cars, yeah.
From the train station that I showed you earlier, well, where the Bernie's sitting now.
Yeah.
The freight's sitting now. And I'm gonna have a rear ender here pretty soon. I'll have to stop it.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think the Zoom digital processing tends to make things a little jumpy there.
Yeah.
I think
It's
minimize the
approximately
bandwidth required.
equidistant. Yeah, it's approximately from the station to either loop on the line, the upper loop or the lower return loop is approximately the same distance.
Yeah.
And the only thing is that the grade coming from the lower level up to the train station, you get slower performance there. And in fact, I'm having some traction issues there. Not a joke. With the freight motor, it should be able to pull 3 cars and a caboose, but it's been since I've been cleaning the track, it hasn't been. It'll pull 2 cars, but that freight motor will pull a lot.
Yeah, no, I think there's some. You have what, nickel silver rail?
On the grade, it's steel.
Oh, okay. Because that's what I was going to say. I thought there were some people in O scale. I thought they use steel rail on their grades.
That's
to get a
correct.
little better adhesion.
Yeah, because our locomotives or all our trolleys have steel wheels.
Yeah.
And now box cars may have plastic wheels and that, but yeah. So since I've cleaned the track, I've tried kerosene, I've tried mineral spirits. I do have lacquer thinner, but I kind of hesitate using that. I have to wear rubber gloves and all that because you don't want to get that stuff into your system. So
Yeah.
so I don't know whether the kerosene is slippery or not. They said somebody had that Model Railroad Hobbyist magazine. They had a guy on. He was talking about using mineral spirits. So I've tried that, but I'll just have to keep experimenting to find out what's the one where the rail will stay clean and conductive, and also give me traction.
Yeah.
Some of the Wagner motor trucks with permanent magnet motors have magnet traction on steel rails.
Yeah, compared to the actual Lionel trains, I don't know. It's you know, I mean, that's a possibility, is to put a couple of those super magnets right near the axles and see if that would give you more traction. But
In the
yeah.
case of the Wagner motors, and I've noticed it in some of my lighter weight trolleys.
Yeah.
I'm,
it's that's a possibility, Jim. Possibility.
yeah, with a heavy trolley, the car's so heavy that I don't notice it very much. I don't notice the difference.
Yeah. Yeah. And I found out that this freight motor that I have is actually 2-rail. And I was wondering, why am I not getting good pickup, electrical pickup?
Oh.
And I found out recently, because I happened to be testing it. And I said, my gosh, I'm not getting any power through these wheels. And I closely examined them, and sure enough, they're insulated. So it originally came as a 2-rail, but of course I got it wired as, 3-rail or 3-rail, track ground and the overhead wire. So,
John, does that freight motor have 2 trucks powered or just one?
Both trucks.
All right, 4 axles then?
Yeah, it's a beast. And it weighs a lot. It's quite heavy. But in O-scale freight cars generally weigh about 1 pound a piece. That's the NMRA standard. And so, I mean, they track well at that weight, and that, but when you're pulling it up a grade, maybe I was too ambitious with 4%, but that's what I designed and built my layout with. And I would have to cut my bench work and move it. And somebody's recommended it to me anyhow, to cut the bench work on this peninsula I have here and move it out 1 foot or 2 to the, as you're looking at it, to the, oh, I see, the camera's the other way.
John, what's your curve radius when you handle steam road cars on the interurban line?
My radiuses are generally 12.5 inches or more. I do have in this yard over here, I do have a siding here with a 9-inch radius curve, and that's supposed to be next to the junk pile, the railroad's junk pile. That's supposed to be for trolley maintenance. So that would only be trolleys and interurbans going into that siding. There's three sidings here. And so that's, but generally about 12.5 inch radius. And I do have to modify the underneath of my railroad box cars to allow the trucks to swing that far.
Okay, that answers my question. I was looking at that Western Pacific boxcar
Yeah,
behind the
And,
LVT freight motor.
yeah. Well, let me see. I can show you because it's sitting right here. Can you see the frame there? Let me pull it back a little bit.
Oh, yes, yes.
See that? Now, the other thing is I have to go after the coupler box too, because the wheels will hit into the coupler box. So let me see if I got that there. You can see where it's shiny because that's a metal coupler box. I have to file that back so that the trucks will swing. The Katy couplers are fine. They will handle a tight curve. And I've done some switching with it. So even pushing cars as well as pulling cars, they're fine. But the car has to have weight in it.
Yeah.
And where did my weight go? Oh, there it is. You can see a bunch of weights there. They sit in a plastic tray in the center of the car.
Yeah.
And I have them in a baggie. And so that provides the weight. So this car weighs about 15 ounces, which is the right weight for a 40-foot boxcar.
Well, thank you. That explains it on what piece of layout I have. I have to restrict the steam road cars to just a segment outside of the tighter radius curves in the city trackage. And of course, that was true. That was true of the prototypes in places in the Midwest.
Yeah, yeah. The prototype. There was a plant. I'm from New York City, from the borough of Queens, and Ronzoni Spaghetti had a plant there, a really large factory, and they had a siding in there, and I don't know what the radius of that curve was, but when they shoved cars in there, you should have heard the flanges complain. I mean, they'd scream. And the locomotive that pushed it in was pushing it about 2 or 3 miles an hour. But apparently the prototype has their issues with sharp radius curves and how much real estate that's available for them to do their thing. So yes, it's interesting to study and to find out what they're doing or how they're doing it.
Thank you.
Yeah. One of the things I'm going to change is on the layout here is this. Let's see. Yeah, this passing siding is short, and it was an original part of the layout. This layout I started in probably around I moved into this house in 1977. So 77, 78, the layout consisted of this loop and this street here. And of course, didn't have all the buildings. That all came after. And then right here, I had, using the principle that the East Penn does of modules that you can bolt together, I had a little return curve that fit right here where this long radius curve is. That curve is probably 36-inch radius. And I had a return loop, and that was all I had. I would go back and forth. But that kept me in the hobby. And as time went on, I put a curve. I had a curve that was sharper than that one. And then I had my return loop over here where the plank road is. And then I built that passing siding and moved the curve, return curve down there by the bridge and so forth. And so I'm thinking of at this turnout to have the tracks go parallel. I may have to build this out a little bit and then have the spring switch here. And I'm probably going to have to push this station back. I've got space back there. And so that these parallel tracks will add about maybe 2 or 3 boxcar lengths to the passing siding. And because this one down below is quite large. And this track here is actually the interchange track. I have to change this switch because I got bad height here. I can't transition this in. So this turnout here, I'm going to have to hand lay with either code 100 or 125 to bring it in here. And then down there, you can see they're going to connect, and there's a track that goes underneath. I have the trackage underneath in the back there is staging track. The Crooked Mountain cars and the trolleys and the other cars there, and another commuter car. Those are all for staging. And that will all be covered up with some building fronts that I can remove easily, because Murphy's Law is that's where derailments are going to happen. And so at least that's my plan. And you see the diesel there and you say, well, how are you going to run that diesel on the interchange track? Well, it so happens that this diesel is called dead rail. I don't know if you know what that means. It's an all nation. And let's see, get this right. Underneath, you see all this wiring here, and that's because there is a G-scale battery in there. And this is dead rail. It's battery powered, and it doesn't make any difference. I don't need 2 rail or 3 rail, so my whole layout is 3 rail. In other words, both rails are ground. And what I do to run this, it's got a decoder in it. And you see that little copper wire there? Can you see that copper wire? There's a copper wire that goes all around there, and that's an antenna. And up here, behind this clip, I'll take it off, that there is a DCC. Let me get it right. I can see it. That's a DCC transmitter. And it has an antenna. That's what this is up here on top. That's an antenna. And so my DCC signals for the diesel, because it doesn't use the overhead wire, is sent over the air. And in here, besides a decoder, I have a receiver. And so I am able to then control that diesel with its battery power and run it anywhere in the layout. I can run it on the trolley side too. And interestingly, that will make the curves. The couplers won't work that well because their position, but that will work well. I have another engine which has that power system. Just a second, let me get it. Sorry for the camera. You're probably familiar with this, the little Plymouth engine. And this has a smaller battery in it. That, by the way, that All Nation one will run 4 hours on a charge. This one I used, this is also battery powered. the battery's smaller. This will run about 45 minutes on a charge. And you see this, this big gun sitting out in the front of it is actually a plug. And I have that plug wired because it's a couple of circuits on the plug. I have that plug wired, so when that's pushed in, it turns the battery off. When I pull it out, then it's ready to run. And that plug there is also the input part for when I recharge the battery. These are with lithium batteries, and you have to be quite careful in charging them so you don't burn your house down. This has a small decoder in it. It's an HO size decoder. And it has on this side, you can see the top in the window there. You can see it looks like some plastic in that, and that's the receiver. And because this one has a plastic body, the antenna, I coiled the wire up. They tell you how to do this. I coiled the wire up and it's completely inside the cab. But of course, the signal goes right through the cab because it's plastic to that receiver over here, that transmitter over here. I'm gonna put this back up. By the way, that is temporary. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put that receiver and that infrared right up here, right above the layout. So it'll have good range. That transmitter, by the way, will transmit over 300 feet. And so long as it'll transmit, you can control the locomotive. You don't have to worry about running wires that far. If you have track that far, it'll go. And so this one will be painted Ontario and Western, and this one I will paint in my home Mongaup Valley layout, railroad. So that's my plan. Plenty to do. So, my gosh, it's almost 11:30.
Yeah.
Good night.
Okay, then. Good night, John. Thank you very much. This is great.
Oh, thanks a lot. Thanks for coming, guys, virtually, but thanks for coming and participating, and I hope this was worth it.
Yes, it
Yeah,
was.
it was. Thank you very much, John.
Thank you, John.
All right.
Yes,
Bye-bye now.
Bye.
It certainly was, John. This was next best thing to be in there. Good night.
Thank you.
All right.